Today we're going to be comparing the keto diet to the vegan diet. Which is better? If you're new to the channel, hello, welcome. My name is Emmie. I'm a nutritionist and the creator of the Slim on Starch program, where you work with me as well as a mindset coach and a nutrition coach to lose weight on a plant-based diet. If you're interested in doing that, then go to healthyemmie.org or just click the link in the down bar. In today's video, I am going to be going over the summary of each one of these diets, the foods that you are allowed to eat in each one of these diets, the pros and cons of the keto and the vegan diets, and which one you should do. First, let's start out with the summary. What is the keto diet? The keto diet is high in fat and low in carb. When you're in the ketogenic state, it's said that the body burns fat by turning fat into ketones in the liver. Now let's go over the vegan diet, specifically a whole food plant-based diet, because vegan can mean a lot of things. I mean, Oreos and Coca-Cola are vegan. Actually, the apple pie from McDonald's is vegan, but I'm not talking about that. I'm going to be talking about a whole food plant-based diet. A whole food plant-based diet does not contain oils or processed foods, and it just so happens to be low in fat and high in carbs. When you eat a whole foods plant-based diet, you fill up your stomach with calorie dilute foods. Look at this graphic from Forks Over Knives. If we look at the different stomachs here, this is what 500 calories of each one of these foods looks like. And you can see that when you fill up your stomach with whole plant foods, you can only fit so much in there. And this is the way that the whole foods plant-based diet allows people to lose weight without going hungry. Okay, so now let's talk about which foods are allowed on each one of these diets. On the keto diet, you can have animal products, butter, oil, lard, cream cheese, eggs, nuts, avocado, fatty beef, fatty meat. On a whole foods plant-based diet, there are pretty much 5 main categories that we tend to pull from, and they're as follows: whole grains, fruit, vegetables, legumes, and then nuts and seeds. And on a whole foods plant-based diet, we don't have any animal products whatsoever. And on a whole foods plant-based no oil diet, we don't do any processed oils. Now moving on to the pros and cons, let's start with keto. What are the pros of keto? And I know what you're thinking, what is she even gonna come up with? Well, my number one pro with keto is that it cuts out processed junk. A lot of people tend to find success on this lifestyle simply because of what they're not eating in comparison to what they used to eat. If you stop eating all the processed junk, you're gonna have success. Now on to the cons of keto. You might wanna sit down for this. First, there is 0 fiber in the keto diet, which leads to constipation, and it also mucks up your gut. And you might be thinking, Emmie, I know that gut health is trendy, but I don't really care too much about it. Well, what if I told you that 95% of the serotonin in our bodies is created in the gut? Serotonin is the mood stabilizing hormone. When people suffer from depression or anxiety, their serotonin levels are out of whack. And so if you are finding that depression, anxiety is something that is a part of your life, you might really want to focus on your gut health, because that's a big part of the puzzle here. They don't call the gut the second brain for nothing. Another con of keto is the keto flu, which happens about 7 to 10 days in, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You basically get the flu. That is how sick you are about 7 to 10 days into the diet. Another huge drawback with keto is that you get kicked out of ketosis if you have too many carbs. Whereas when you're eating a more sustainable diet, you don't get kicked out of anything. If you have something that's not aligned with your goals, you pick right back up in the next meal with eating something that's aligned with your goals. But if you're kicked out of ketosis, then you're kicked out of that beautiful state where you're burning those ketones. And then probably the biggest drawback with keto is that you don't get to eat carbs. And I'm not just trying to be, oh, I love my carbs, I'm so funny, I love carbs. No, you genuinely need carbs because they're the body's preferred source of fuel. Every single one of the hundreds of trillions of cells in our body uses glucose for fuel. And what is glucose? A carbohydrate. Just don't Don't mind the tail. Another con of keto, it's extremely high in saturated fat and cholesterol, which is going to contribute to high blood pressure and your risk for stroke, diabetes, heart disease, and heart attack. It's also extremely expensive. People think that a whole foods plant-based diet is expensive. Have you seen the price of meat at Whole Foods? Honey. Another thing with keto is that it gives you false weight loss. So you think that you're losing weight, but really you're just releasing water weight because the diet is so low in carbs. And for each gram of glycogen that we store, which is stored carbohydrate, we store 3 grams of water, which means if you stop eating carbs, you're just dropping water weight. People step on the scale and they think that they have released tons and tons of weight, when really it's just water that's been released, and you're dehydrated, your kidneys are overworked, and then once you get kicked out of ketosis, the weight comes back on, you think that you're a failure, but it has absolutely nothing to do with you, and your body is just rehydrating itself. Keto sucks. Okay, now on to the whole foods plant-based diet, pros and cons. Starting out with the pros. Probably the best one. You can eat to satiety. You don't have to be hungry all the time. Remember that graphic I showed you earlier, the forks over knives graphic of all the stomachs? Look at that. Your stomach can actually be filled up. You don't have to go hungry. You also feel energized on this diet. As I was talking about, carbs are the body's preferred source of fuel. So if you're eating things that make you feel energized, you're not going to be dragging around, oh my God, I'm on a diet. This is awful. I hate this. No, you're feeling energized. You also can prevent and reverse disease through this diet. Dr. Greger has a wonderful talk called Uprooting the Leading Causes of Death, where he proves that 14 out of the 15 leading causes of death can be prevented and even reversed by a plant-based diet. The one that can't, car accidents. It's also not expensive. Plant-based being an expensive diet is a myth. Whole plant foods are actually really cheap. Starch, which is something that should be the bulk of your intake on this lifestyle, rice and potatoes and beans and whole grain pasta, is some of the cheapest food on the planet. It's also chock full of fiber. Fiber keeps you nice and regular, and as we talked about too, helps regulate your mood because serotonin is made in the gut, and the gut thrives off of having enough fiber. A whole foods plant-based diet also promotes sustainable weight loss. If you are eating below the hunger drive, you can only do that for so long. Because a whole foods plant-based diet allows you to fill up your stomach, you're not going to be eating below the hunger drive, which usually leads to a binge restrict cycle. So you'll actually be able to lose weight. Now for the cons of a whole foods plant-based diet. First, it seems extreme. Keyword seems. It's not actually an extreme diet. And Caldwell Esselstyn has this great quote, which I'm going to put on the screen now, which reads as such. Some people think that a plant-based whole foods diet is extreme. 500,000 people a year will have their chests opened up and a vein taken from their leg and sewn into their coronary artery. Some people would call that extreme. I mean, Caldwell Esselstyn is dropping the mic. But this is a con because it does seem extreme. When people hear vegan, when people hear no meat, it's not the norm. And for that reason, it scares people. I know that I personally was raised on a diet where I was eating meat, and the thought of eating meat, I so vividly once remember saying, a meal doesn't seem complete if I don't have meat there. It just felt like that's what made the meal complete. And to go without it can seem like an extreme measure, which can scare a lot of people off. Another con is that the diet is often misinterpreted. People will go on a vegan diet and they'll be eating vegan Ben & Jerry's and all the cool vegan products that they see, and they'll not find success and say this diet doesn't work. When we really shouldn't be focusing on vegan, we should be focusing on whole plant foods. And I was talking to my significant other about this, who's experimenting with a whole foods plant-based diet, and he was saying, is it okay if I have some meat at dinner every night? And I said, you're making huge improvements from the way that you used to eat. You're eating an abundance of plant-based meals. You're eating a plant-based breakfast, a plant-based lunch. That's tremendous. If you're having some meat at dinner, I don't really care. What we want to put forth here is the idea of you having more whole plant foods in your diet as opposed to just focusing on the exclusion of certain things. Another con is that it can be difficult socially to eat a whole foods plant-based diet because it still is not the norm. Many places will only offer options that are aligned with the standard American diet, and you do have to make certain requests if you would like the food to be aligned with the way that you eat, and that can be uncomfortable for people. But when you put yourself first, you're able to help others. And the tree that does not receive water and sunlight cannot bear fruit for others. So if you ever think that you're being an inconvenience by asking for your food to be prepared a certain way, know that if you don't do that, it's only going to be so long until you have nothing left to give because you're not helping yourself and energizing yourself. So make the requests for yourself so that you can be somebody who helps others. If you don't, they're going to be wiping your bum one day because you didn't want to inconvenience them with what your meal requests were. Well, I'd rather be keeping the cheese off of your salad than wiping your bum, but that's just me. So which one do I prefer? A whole foods plant-based diet. And if you have no idea how to get started on that, I do have a free 1-day meal plan, which you can get in the down bar. You can click free 1-day meal plan and I have got you covered. It's delicious and you're not gonna go hungry. If you've already gotten the free 1-day meal plan and you need some more personalized guidance, I got you. Apply to work with me and my team. And if you are still watching, comment plant-based so I know that you made it to the end of the video. I love you, honeys, and I'll see you in my next one. Mwah.